How is one supposed to filter out what is real and what is just hype? In a world where so much information is gained online and opinions are formed based on information obtained from secondhand sources, it is often difficult to gather an accurate depiction of what really goes on in the world. How can we, as advocates for agriculture, combat inaccurate representations of our industry and make people really understand what goes into the production of their food? Honorable judges, master chairperson, friends and family. With so much different information out there, so many different opinions and insight, how can we successfully educate urban populations on where our food comes from and the industry standards involved? My suggestions would be to start by educating youth when they are most eager to learn and willing to ask questions, which ties me to my other two key points of transparency on the part of individuals in the agricultural field and of ensuring that we put things into terms that others can understand. By teaching youth when they are most curious and eager to learn, we can have the most impact. To me, agricultural learning days are a great place to start and a great way to get children involved. I mean, Eggy Days is generally a hit with the kids, but it seems like this just grazes the surface. Speaking from the perspective of the dairy industry, as that is where my background is, I know that my family has conducted dairy tours for elementary school classes and other youth groups, as well as participated in local agricultural learning events. These days, with the industry regulations increasing, it is often difficult to actually get people onto the farms for safety and biohazard concerns. But there are other ways to get the job done. We put together a video tour of the daily activities of our farm, and we engage kids by bringing equipment that we use, such as a single-leg milk stool that's always a hit. Perhaps if we could incorporate more education on the basics of food production into school curriculums, we could have more of an impact and teach more lifelong skills. While it's great to get toddlers petting animals, it's also important to teach youth at an age when they're beginning to understand how things work, think critically, and formulate ideas based on what they learn and experience. I feel like this is already happening, but more so in rural areas than in urban areas where it's most needed. By educating youth on agricultural standards and practices, we can also influence them to make potentially better dietary decisions and to pass on this information to others. But this would require farmers to collaborate and share their lifestyles, bringing me to my second point. Farmers need to be more transparent and willing to share what we do and how we do it. It's never easy letting people into our lives and taking the time to share what we do. But when we don't, assumptions are made. And often these are negative, because why else wouldn't we want to share what goes on behind closed doors? We have to take the time to answer questions that are asked and tell our stories, because people don't know. Most people don't know that every time milk is picked up, a milk sample is taken and tested, and if there are antibiotics present, the milk isn't used. And farmers contributing the milk are fined heavily. So there aren't antibiotics in your milk, despite what media and advertising schemes might suggest. It takes effort and to take the time to open the doors of your business and show the behind-the-scenes activities that go into production. You are opening up yourself for skepticism and critique, because no workplace is perfect, but that doesn't make it any easier to hear. On top of this, it can be difficult to present this information on the functioning of agriculture in a way that someone without any agricultural background can understand. This leads me to my third and final suggestion of finding creative ways of explaining agriculture in terms that anyone and everyone can understand. For the farming industry, I would explain it like any other company. The animals and crops are our employees, and if you don't treat them right, they aren't going to perform to their maximal potential, and that's lost production, which means loss of profit. This can be applied to the way that we treat our animals, from feeding and handling to administration of medications. If animals are treated poorly, neglected, not fed well, this causes stress. And I'm sure we can all relate to not functioning our best when under stress. On our dairy, animal activities are monitored electronically via leg bands, and if there are any changes to a cow's regular activities or milk productions, the cow is flagged for assessment and addressed accordingly. Just like anyone in agriculture, we want our animals and crops to be happy, healthy, and successful. Farmers are the same as any other business owner trying to make a success, and optimal production can't come from a negative environment. People love sharing their passions, and farming is no different. It takes open-mindedness, patience, and willingness to learn from both sides of the divide. If we, as advocates for agriculture, are willing to open our doors, take time to explain things, and are willing to accept criticism and even learn from it, then we can create a positive environment in which everyone can benefit. If we implement this early on into our educational curriculums, these issues will only be easier to address. So, my fellow agricultural enthusiasts, take time to talk to people and answer questions. And when asking people to see things from our side, take into consideration their side. You never know what valuable insight they might be able to offer.